Alright, I'm gonna be honest here, this Ben Chiarot thing is kind of crazy. Like, I didn't realize we'd be talking about this guy this much at this point in the season, but I guess when the Montreal Canadiens are as bad as they are, and they're probably not gonna go out there and make the playoffs, you kinda have to go out there and, for lack of a better term, pull down the easy fruit. So, we're talking about Ben Chiarot here today, Montreal Canadiens defenseman who is on an expiring contract, a guy who has gone out there at 30 years old as a 6'3", 234-pound left-handed defenseman, and a guy who has gone out there and not really produced as much as you would have liked, but it's kind of understandable because nobody on the Montreal Canadiens has really produced as much as you would like. Ben Chiarot this season has 7 points in 31 games played. He had 7 points in 41 games played last year, and it's kind of difficult to believe, but 2 seasons ago in his first year in Montreal, the guy had 21 points and 9 goals in 69 games, so that's very nice. Now, I get it, he didn't produce last year in the playoffs either, but he was a very effective player. 2 points, 22 games when the Canadiens went to the finals, but as we all kind of recognize, the finals Canadian squad that was able to do all that and more, they had a really different plan when it comes to strategies and winning games, that it didn't really lead to any significantly high production out of anybody on the team. But for Ben Chiarot, he was a super important part of that team. Top 4 guys, Edvinsson, Weber, Petrie, Chiarot, they went out there, they killed a whole bunch of minutes, and they were just big, immovable defensemen that did their job. This season, though, with the lack of leadership from Shea Weber, with the lack of that confidence that Carey Price brings, with the lack of an entire line in Tatar, Danault, Gallagher, and a whole bunch of other guys leaving too, the Montreal Canadiens sucked this year. And so, for Ben Chiarot, who is on the last year of a $3.5 million AAV contract, and with a modified no-trade clause too, there is very heavy speculation that he will get traded. It's not even a matter of if he's going to get traded anymore, it's a matter of when and where to. He is most likely going to get moved at the trade deadline sometime over there in that area, so it's probably not the best decision to go out there and start making your predictions today. But when it comes to teams that might be interested, we have ourselves a few NHL insiders that have gone out there and labeled some teams. Marc-Antoine Gaudin went out there and had himself this quote. Now, I didn't find a source for this. This is just off of hearsay and an Instagram page that talked about this as well. But this was an idea that I saw some people throwing around. So if it is inaccurate, then that's my bad. But Marc-Antoine Gaudin apparently thinks that the Panthers and Capitals could have interest in Ben Chiarot. Now, I get it, it's easy to go out there and cynically say, okay, Lego, come on, you don't have to make a video about this. There are X, Y, and Z amount of teams that could potentially go out there and have interest in Chiarot. Just saying 2 of them that could have that interest doesn't really accomplish anything. But you know what, darn it, it gives us some interesting video fodder here, which is kind of why we're going to be going over these teams in this video. Let's talk about Ben Chiarot, let's talk about Washington, let's talk about Florida. Now, as we noted, Ben Chiarot, at his best, he is a good, shutdown, defensively minded defenseman who really doesn't play as poorly as he has been this season. Now, the Chiarot-Petrie pairing was not a good one to kick off the year, but we do know that Chiarot, when he is better, he is a lot better, and he goes out there and he does his job. It's just you kind of need a puck-moving defenseman alongside of him to really get the max effectiveness out of his game. When it comes to the Florida Panthers, you take a look at their D-core. Who do they have on their D pairings right here? Matt Kiersted, Mackenzie Weegar, Olli Juolevi, Lucas Carlsson, and Chase Priskie. Okay, that sucks. But it's because you have guys like Marcus Nudavara, you have guys like Brandon Montour, obviously you have Aaron Ekblad out there too, that haven't been included on their lineup. Now, if you go out there and say to me right away, okay, let's say the number 1 option in Florida, Aaron Ekblad, right-handed guy, logs up minutes. What would happen if you put him beside a Ben Chiarot who could also log a lot of minutes and who plays on the left? To me, this is a pretty good pairing idea because you do have the character foils of a guy in Chiarot who is defensively minded and defensively stable, alongside of a guy like Aaron Ekblad who can do both the offensive and defensive game pretty well. If you really wanted to go out there and say that the Florida Panthers want an anchor, they want another guy to come in here, log significant minutes, and just not make too many mistakes, Ben Chiarot could be your guy as long as you set him up properly. Now, as I noted, the Canadiens this year have not been great, so Ben Chiarot this year hasn't looked as good as he has before, but there still is that potential of what he has done, what he did as recently as last playoffs, and how good he can be that could be appealing to teams like Florida. Now, when it comes to Washington, this is another team where you take a look at their defensive core and you say, okay, you have Martin Verhaeghe, John Carlson, Orlov Jensen, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and Justin Schultz, a much, much better D-core than the D-core we saw in Florida. So a guy like Ben Chiarot getting added onto the squad would be a lot more difficult, in my opinion, because it would be a lot more difficult to say, definitively at least, who's coming out of the lineup for him. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know the Capitals as well as I know a lot of other teams, but when it comes to this decor right here, I kind of like it already. So, a Ben Chiarot getting added as just another option to maybe replace Trevor Van Riemsdyk and log some significant minutes would be a really good addition to this blue line. So when I see that the Panthers and the Caps could have interest in Montreal Canadiens defenseman Ben Chiarot, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Now, when it comes to the return, what could the Habs get for a guy like Chiarot? Well, Elliotte Friedman has gone out there several times throughout the past few weeks and said to the media that he believes that Ben Chiarot could be, or not even could be, will be, most likely will be, worth a first-round pick. And some team is going to go out there, give a first for Chiarot, and the Canadiens are going to walk away happy and doing their thing because they like draft picks and they want to go out there and start redeeming themselves for all of the failed prospects they got and never really developed into anything over the years. Well, this is kind of where things head down that direction because Elliotte Friedman on the Jeff Merrick show a week ago said this about Ben Chiarot as well as Jacob Chychrun. If Arizona is trading Chychrun, and I believe they are, I mean, I wouldn't have written it if I thought it was a lie. The difference between Chiarot and Chychrun is that Chychrun is like a 3-year solve, right? I don't know. I'd be looking at that. Now, the implication of this quote kind of rubs me the wrong way because it kind of implies that Ben Chiarot is more or less the same caliber of player as a Jacob Chychrun is, the only difference being that Chychrun has 3 years compared to Ben Chiarot, who expires at the end of this season, and that's kind of where things get a little bit nutty, because if Elliotte Friedman is implying the same thing, that the caliber of talent and the desirability of these players is somewhat in the same realm, isolating the play and not taking a look at the contracts, then that's kind of where things get even more difficult for me to digest. No, Ben Chiarot is not in the same tier as a Jacob Chychrun, and just because Chychrun has 3 more years and Ben Chiarot has only 1, that is not the only factor that is going to make Chychrun more valuable. Chychrun can score, Chychrun can log big minutes too, Chychrun is younger, Chychrun has a lot more years left in the tank. Ben Chiarot is having a bad year, coming straight off the heels of a Stanley Cup Finals appearance where he had 2 points in 22 games. They are not in the same realm, so I don't want anybody to go out there and make that comparison right here. Now, would the price for a Jacob Chychrun be a lot higher? Yeah, absolutely it would be. 2 firsts, roster players, and prospects, that is very likely not what a Ben Chiarot is going to go out there and get for the Montreal Canadiens on the trade market. I'm thinking for Ben Chiarot, if you really want to go with the angle that he's worth a first, I would say probably a first, and that's about it. The Montreal Canadiens wouldn't really need any defensemen coming back because they have so many defensemen that they're calling up and down anyway with all the injuries and the protocols going on that they're kind of used to having AHL Laval caliber players suiting up for their team on this roster at this point, right? So for Ben Chiarot, try to maximize the value on the draft picks. Try to get as good of a selection as you can. Obviously, if you're trading Chiarot to a team like Washington or a team like Florida or a team that is going to probably look to go far in the playoffs, you're not going to get a super high pick that is somewhere in the top 15. But if you get yourselves a top 25 pick, there's another pick for you right there, alongside of your Montreal first that is probably going to be somewhere in the top 4. So, for Montreal, this is your year to go out there and try to redeem yourselves when it comes to drafting and developing. Bergevin is out. Timmins is out. All the guys that went out there and drafted all these bums that didn't do anything, they're out. So, yeah, Ben Chiarot might be the first guy to go on this current Canadiens team that will get you another draft pick. Talk to me in the comments, what do you think, whether or not that should be Washington or Florida. If you're a fan of either of these two teams, then please let me know in the comments, what do you think about Ben Chiarot, and would you want to have him on your squad? I think Florida would have a lot more desperation right now just because of who they have in their lineup and who's available. Washington, they're a lot healthier, so it would be easier for me to understand if they're not too complacent with that idea, but either way, let me know in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. 99, and bye.